Hey guys, it's Landon Blake with TBAS-Surveyor.org. In this video, I'm going to teach you guys about some unit conversions and some distance units. So we're going to look at some common units that land surveyors use, American land surveyors, and we're going to do some really simple unit conversion math. So why are units important? Units are important because if you don't get units correct, you crash space probes into other planets. That's a true story that actually happened. So when you have some value, for example, for a distance or the length of a line, it doesn't really make sense to say it's 30. 30 what? Is it 30 feet? Is it 30 meters? Is it 30 miles? Right? So for values of area and distance, you need an associated unit, right? Or you don't really know what you're talking about. Okay, so it's like if I was gonna hire you to paint my house, and I told you I'm gonna pay you $5. Okay, $5 what? Am I gonna pay you 5 pizzas, $5, 5 rides in my sports car? Like, you want to know 5 what, right? What's the unit? Okay, so units are important, and units are really important for land surveyors. Okay, so we're going to go over some of the common units in surveying. Okay, so I'm just going to describe some of these to you, and then we'll do a few unit conversions. Let me try and stand over here where you guys can see me. Okay, so these are some common units for American surveyors. So for distance, we have what's called the survey foot, U.S. survey foot. Okay, so it's 1 foot, 12 inches, right? Or 10 tenths of a foot. Okay, we have the international foot, which is a foot that's a little tiny bit smaller than the survey foot, right? And that's because they changed the definition of the meter, and then because they changed the definition of the meter, they changed the definition of the foot, which I think was one of the dumbest things ever done in the history of mankind, but it is what it is. We can't change it. Okay, then we have the yard, which is 3 feet. We have the chain, which is 66 feet. We have the link, which is, there's 100 links in a chain, so a link is 0.66 feet. Then we have the mile, which is 80 chains or 5,280 feet. Okay. Then we have for area, we have the square foot. We have the square chain, which we don't use very much, but it's useful. And I'll teach you why. And we have the acre. Okay. So those are the units that we use in the United States. Okay. So we got to talk about meters for a minute. So all these units here are part of what we call the imperial system. It's imperial because it comes from Britain. And so this is how most Americans think, okay, if you're in the United States. But the rest of the world uses the meter. And surveyors have to know a little bit about meters. Now, I'll be honest with you, I hate meters, and I hate working in metric. But if you're going to be a land surveyor, you gotta understand some basics about the metric system and about converting from imperial units to metric units. Why? Well, there's a couple reasons. One is the folks that manufacture our equipment, they typically publish their accuracy specifications and other information using metric units. So if you want to know how good your total station is, you know, how accurately or precisely it can measure a distance, you got to understand metric. And the wonderful folks at NGS that put together our national datums, because they are scientists and not surveyors, they work in metric, not in feet. So for example, if you look at the state plane coordinate system definitions, most of the values they give you for the zone constants are in metric. If you're not a surveyor, don't even worry about what that means. But if you're a surveyor, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, so surveyors do have to know a little bit about the metric system and how to convert from feet to meters. Another real common thing we find in surveying is we have survey rods or antennas that are 2 meters tall, okay, which is 6.56 feet. Okay, so you do have to know some conversions from feet to meters, feeters to meters. Okay, so those are some different units. Okay, we'll also talk about tenths of a foot. So surveyors don't work in inches or eighths or sixteenths of an inch. We work with tenths of feet and hundredths of feet. Okay, so typically engineers and surveyors work with tenths and hundredths of feet, whereas architects work with inches and fractional parts of inches. Okay, so let's go ahead and just do some unit conversions over here. Okay, so let's just talk about how you convert from decimal survey feet to feet and inches. Okay, so Surveyors would express a value. Let's say we've measured a line between 2 points, A and B, and we measure that line, and it's 323.22 survey feet. Okay, so this part right here, let me get a different color pin. This part right here on the left side of the decimal, that's the number of whole feet. Okay. This part over here is the fractional part of the whole foot. Okay, this is fractional. Okay, and the way surveyors would say this right here is we'd actually pronounce that 22 hundredths. That's how we would say that. Okay. Now, let's just say we didn't have the 2 on the end. So if we took away the 2, okay, then surveyors would say 323 feet and 2 tenths. Okay. We will occasionally talk about stuff in the thousandths of a foot, but not very often because we can't measure that good. Okay. So let's put that back up. Let's put the 2 back up. Okay. Now let's talk about what is that in inches, right? What is that value in inches? Because a lot of times we have to convert, especially when we're working with architects, we have to convert back and forth between inches and feet. Okay, so here's what you do. Whenever you're converting from feet to inches and inches to feet, you don't have to worry about the whole feet, right? That just drops right down. So we got 323. Okay, but what we want to know is we want to know what this 22 hundredths is. Okay, we want to know what that is, 22 hundredths in feet. What is that in feet? That's what we want to know. Okay. Sorry. We want to know what it is in inches. I apologize. Inches. Okay. So here's what we do. We know there's 12 inches in a foot, and we have 0.22 of a foot. So the formula we want to use is 0.22, right? I always like to put my leading zero. 0.22 times 12 will give us the number of inches, decimal inches, this value is in feet. Okay, and I'm not going to try and do that math in my head. I think it's 2.4, but okay, it's 2.64. Okay, so this value, 0.22 or 22 hundredths of a foot, is 2.64 inches. Okay, so we could say it's 323 feet and 2.64 inches. Okay, 323 feet, 2.64 inches. By the way, this little tick, surveyors use this for the foot. We use this for the inches. That also can be minutes and seconds in an angle, but because we're talking distances, it's feet and inches. Okay, so 2.64 inches. Now, you could take that a step further and try and find out how many eighths or sixteenths is 0.64 of an inch. Okay, I'm not going to do that in this video, but there's some handy tables out there that show you the fractional parts of an inch, an eighth or a sixteenth, how that compares to a decimal value of an inch. Okay, if I can remember, I'll do another video and we'll walk through. We'll just take a look at that table. Okay, but that's how you convert, okay, from decimal feet to feet and inches. Okay, now let's just go back the other way. All right, we're going to go back the other way. So I'm going to say, all right, you've got a value. Let's say it's 18 feet. 2.5 inches. Okay, let's make it 7.5 inches. 18 feet, 7.5 inches. Okay, we want to know what that is in decimal feet. Okay, now remember this part over here, this is the whole foot, number of whole feet, right? This is whole feet. Okay. And this is the fractional part of the foot, right? The inches is the fractional. Okay, so what we can do is we can just drop down the whole feet, right? Because that isn't going to change in this conversion. So we've got 18 feet. Okay, but we want to know, what do we put on the other side of the decimal here for decimal feet? Okay, so here's what you do. First of all, you got to take this fraction right here. You got to convert whatever fraction you have, fractional inch, to a decimal inch. Okay, so if we do that math, we get 7.5 inches. Okay, you want to make sure you get decimal inches, so get rid of the fractional part of the inch. Okay, now that we have 7.5 inches, we know there's 12 inches in a foot. Okay, 12 inches in a foot. So if we take 7.5 divided by 12, we'll get the decimal parts of a foot. Okay, and we know it should be roughly around 0.75, because 7 inches is pretty close to 8 inches, which would be 0.75. So let me do that math. Okay, so it's 0.625. Okay, so it's 0.625. Sorry. It's 0.625. Okay, now, this would be out to the thousandth. Okay, so this is tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and decimal feet. Surveyors don't usually measure to the thousandth. We can't usually measure that good. So I would round that up to 18.63 feet. Okay, that's decimal foot. This is feet and inches. That's decimal feet. Okay, now, let's just talk about how we go from feet to chains. Survey feet to chains. Okay, so there's 66 feet. 66 feet equals 1 chain. Okay, chains and links and miles and acres and square chains, they all come from the public land survey system, right? Which is a system used to survey across the United States in the good old days. Okay, so 66 feet equals 1 chain. Okay, 1 chain has 100 links, so that's equal to 100 links. Okay, which means 1 link equals 0.66 feet. Okay, so let's say you're reading some old General Land Office surveys and they give you a distance. They say the creek or the river is 1 chain and 24 links wide, and we want to know how wide is that in feet. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take 1 chain. We know what that is. That's 66 feet. And now we need to know how many feet is 24 links. Okay, so it's really simple. We take 24 times 0.66. That's going to tell you how many feet we get. Okay, and I'm tired, so I'm not going to do that math in my head. Okay, so that's 15.84 feet. Okay, so it's 15.84 feet. Okay, so now we can add 66 feet plus 15.84 feet. Okay, is going to give us our distance in chains, right? I'm sorry, our distance in feet for the width of the river, and I think I can do this math in my head. So we got 81.84 feet. That's how wide the river is, 1 chain, 24 links. Okay, so that shows you how you can do links to chains and links to feet. Okay. Now let's do feet to links, chains and links. So let's say we've got a line that's 92 feet long, and we want to know what is that in chains. Okay, so here's what you do. The first thing you do is you take this number in feet and you divide it by 66. That's going to tell you how many chains you got. Okay, so we got 1 chain. Actually, we got 1 chain. Okay, so we're going to get 1 point something chains, right? Okay, so let me do that math real quick. Okay, so we got 1.3939 chains. Okay, but now we want to know, sorry, there goes my phone. Now we want to know how many links is this fractional part of the chain. So this is a fractional part of a chain. we want to know how many links is it. Okay, now we know there's 100 links in a chain, so all we do is multiply that number by 100. Okay, and that's going to tell us that we've got 39.3 chains. Sorry, 39.3 links. Okay, so what we have is one chain and 39 links. We're just going to round down to the nearest link. Okay, 39 links. Okay, so that's how you go from survey feet to chains and links. Okay, now let's just wrap up with some area. Okay, so there is 1 acre equals 10 square chains. That's where the value of an acre comes from. It comes from chains, 10 square chains. Okay, and so here's how I remember that. The chain is 66 feet, so 10 square chains would be 660 times 660. If you can remember that math, you can always remember how many square feet is in an acre. Okay, so 1 acre equals 10 square chains. 10 square chains equals 43,650 square feet. Okay, and if you take 660 times 660, that's the number you get. You get 43,650. Okay, now the most common calculation I do with acres and surveying is I take some large number in square feet, so let's say 136,250 square feet, and we want to know what is that in acres. So as a general rule in my shop, if it's less than an acre in size, the parcel that we're talking about, we express that area in square feet. If it's more than an acre, we express it in decimal acres. Okay, so let's see how many acres that is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that number, we're going to divide it by 43,650, and that's going to tell us how many decimal acres we have. Decimal acres. Okay. So let's go do that math. 136,250. 136,250. Divided by 43,650 is 3.12. I usually go to the tenth of an acre. So it's 3.12 acres, decimal acres. Okay. All right, now one thing I will tell you that'll help you if you can remember. This will help you remember. It all comes back to chains. Okay, so 10 square chains will help you remember how many square feet is in an acre. Okay, and then if you can remember for distance, the standard public land survey system section, which was the square that they divided all the land up into in the western U.S., okay, it was 80 chains by 80 chains. Okay, so if you can remember that. Okay, and 80 chains equals a mile. Okay, we know there's 66 feet in a mile, so 80 chains equals 1 mile. Okay, so if you can remember that a mile is 80 chains, then you can remember 80 times 66 equals 5,280 feet. That's how many survey feet are in a mile. Okay, so there's a crash course on units, common units for the American surveyor and how you do some unit conversions. Here's what I think I'll do. We'll talk about some conversions between metric and feet. And feet and metric, we'll go through some examples of that in another video. And then we'll also look at the table that shows you what decimal parts of an inch, how that converts to sixteenths or eighths of an inch. So we'll show you how one of those table works, and we'll just walk through some examples of that, because that can be handy if you're doing construction stuff. We don't do a ton of that here, but it's helpful. So we'll do at least one more video on units. One thing I didn't talk about here is volumes. So in volumes, we work in cubic yards. I don't do a ton of construction, so I'm not sure if I'll do a video on volumes, but that'll at least get you guys comfortable with some common units for the American surveyor and how you do some basic unit conversions. I'll try, if I have time, I'll whip up some maybe a worksheet or two with some common unit conversions and maybe some word problems based on unit conversions, and so that you guys can practice what we talked about. If you have questions or you're not sure about something or you need some more examples, hit me up in the YouTube comments or let me know. Send me an email, landon.blake@redefinehorizons.com, and I'll do some more videos for you guys. All right? Thanks for watching.